They call him a threat. They whisper it in diplomatic circles. They write it in confidential reports. They repeat it in the media with carefully chosen words, but the meaning is the same. And yet the question that should be asked is a threat to whom? A threat to what? Not a threat to the people, for the people see hope in his voice. Not a threat to peace, for peace cannot exist where injustice rules. The truth is clear. The ones who feel threatened are those whose power depends on the silence of the oppressed, whose wealth is built on the plunder of the weak, whose influence survives only so long as others dare not speak. For too long, the story of this continent has been written elsewhere, in foreign capitals, in the boardrooms of multinational corporations, in the offices of those who have never set foot on the soil they claim to help. For too long, the nations here have been treated as chess pieces on a board that they do not control. The rules were not written for them to win. The system was designed for them to remain suppliers of raw materials, sources of cheap labor, markets for overpriced imports, always dependent, always vulnerable, always waiting for permission to rise. But now someone has dared to reject this script. Someone has refused to speak in the language of submission, refused to bow to the invisible hand that signs their fate. Someone has reminded the world that dignity is not a gift that can be given or taken away. It is a birthright. And this act alone, this refusal to kneel, has made the guardians of the old order tremble. They call it danger, they call it instability, but what they truly fear is that one voice of defiance will awaken 1,000 more. The so-called threat lies not in weapons but in ideas, ideas that challenge the belief that power must always flow from outside in, ideas that declare the right of every nation to control its own resources, its own destiny, its own path. Ideas that tear down the myth that Africa cannot stand without leaning on foreign powers. Such ideas are far more dangerous to imperial systems than any army, because once they take root in the minds of the people, no force on earth can uproot them. It is no coincidence that whenever a leader speaks this way, the response from the global order is swift and predictable. At first they ignore, then they mock, then they apply pressure, diplomatic isolation, economic sanctions, media campaigns painting the leader as reckless or dangerous to his own people, and when all else fails, history shows that they have reached for even darker methods. This has been the fate of many who dared to stand without foreign approval, many whose only crime was believing their people deserved better. And yet, despite this danger, the message spreads. It crosses borders faster than their propaganda can contain it. It is whispered in marketplaces, debated in classrooms, sung in the streets, because deep down the people recognize the truth. They have lived under the weight of exploitation for generations. They have seen their leaders reduced to mere managers of foreign interests. They have watched their resources flow outward while poverty remains at home. And so when they hear someone speak, not of aid but of independence, not of partnership but of sovereignty, their hearts know it is the path they have long been waiting for. The fear in the halls of global power is not that one man will succeed. It is that his success will prove the model works. It is that other nations will see the example and follow it. It is that the illusion of inevitability, the belief that Africa must forever be subordinate, will be shattered beyond repair. They fear a chain reaction, a tide of independence movements they cannot control, a united front of nations who will no longer play by their rules. They fear a new kind of unity, not one imposed from outside, but one that grows from shared struggle and shared vision. They fear the realization that the wealth of this continent can serve its own children before it serves foreign shareholders. They fear the end of a system that has allowed them to dictate terms for decades while preaching equality they do not practice, and they know that once the people taste true sovereignty, they will never willingly return to chains. But this is not only about one nation or one leader, it is about the awakening of a people across an entire continent and beyond. For the struggle here is mirrored in every place where the weak are told to accept their place, where resources are extracted without fair return, where sovereignty is treated as ceremonial rather than real. It is a struggle against a global order that maintains its power, not through justice but through imbalance. And so the threat is real, but not in the way they claim. The threat is to the architecture of exploitation, to the comfort of those who have grown rich from the poverty of others, to the illusion that the old system is unshakable. It is a threat to every lie that says Africa cannot decide for itself, that says the oppressed cannot become the architects of their own freedom. Those who hold power today know the stakes. They understand that control is not maintained by force alone, but by belief, the belief that there is no alternative. This is why they fear anyone who dares to imagine otherwise. This is why they fear anyone who calls on the people to rise, to unite, to refuse the terms imposed on them, because the moment that belief breaks, the system begins to crumble. We have seen it before in history, empires that seemed eternal collapsing when their subjects decided they had nothing left to lose, chains that seemed unbreakable snapping under the pressure of unity and courage. And we will see it again, for the conditions that sustain injustice are always weaker than they appear. The real strength lies with the people, and the people are beginning to remember it. But remembering is not enough. It must be followed by action, the building of institutions that serve the people, the protection of resources from foreign plunder, the creation of systems that do not replicate the very injustices they seek to replace. And this is perhaps the greatest reason the powerful fear this movement, because it is not content to speak of change, it moves to implement it. It does not wait for permission, it acts. It does not simply dream of freedom, it begins to live it. The world will try to label such defiance as dangerous. They will say it risks instability, that it invites chaos, but what they will not admit is that the chaos they fear is the collapse of their own dominance. They will not admit that the instability they warn of is the instability of an unjust order finally being challenged. They will not admit that the danger is to their profit, not to the lives of the people. And so they will continue to speak of threats. They will continue to craft narratives designed to turn the people against their own champions. They will continue to offer conditional acceptance in exchange for compliance. But for those who see through the illusion, the choice is clear. The real threat is not the one they name. The real threat is the system that has kept Africa in chains for far too long. The time has come to decide, will we allow the definition of threat to be dictated by those who profit from our submission, or will we reclaim that word and wear it proudly as the threat to every injustice, every exploitation, every theft of our dignity? If being a threat means refusing to kneel, then we must all become threats. If being a threat means demanding control over our own destiny, then we must all be dangerous to those who would deny it. Because the truth is this, when they call one of us a threat, they are speaking of all who dare to dream of freedom. They are warning themselves that the days of easy control are ending. They are admitting, without meaning to, that the balance of power is shifting. And if that is what they fear, then perhaps fear is exactly what they should feel. You sit there in your suits behind your flags, speaking of rules, laws, and order, pretending to guard the peace of the world, but I see through you. I see through the polished speeches, the carefully chosen words, the handshakes for the cameras, the smiles that hide the hands still dripping with the resources of my land. I stand here today, not because you have given me permission, but because my people demanded a voice that will not bow to your permission. You can dress up your power in the language of diplomacy, but I know what it truly is, the ability to decide who eats and who starves, who rises and who falls, who is allowed to dream and who must remain silent. And I am here to tell you that I will not be silent. You say I am dangerous. You whisper that I am reckless, that I will bring instability, that I will cause suffering. But I ask you, suffering for whom? Instability for whom? Because for my people, instability is nothing new. We have lived it every day under the shadow of foreign control. We have lived it when our resources are stolen in plain sight, while our children go hungry. We have lived it when the price of our own wealth is decided in markets we do not control. We have lived it when we are told that independence is a flag and an anthem, while the real power remains in the hands of outsiders. If this is your stability, then yes, I am here to destroy it. You have taken so much from us that you expect us to forget what is ours. You expect us to believe that the minerals in our ground belong to companies we have never seen, that the profits from our work belong in foreign banks, that our leaders must take orders from people who have never set foot in our villages. You have wrapped your theft in agreements, your domination in treaties, your greed in aid packages, but you cannot disguise the truth. You have made us beg for the very wealth that was born in our soil, and now you call me a threat because I say no more. You try to tell me that I must play by your rules, but your rules were never meant to let me win. They were designed for one outcome, your victory, my defeat. You talk about free trade, but it is only free for you. You talk about democracy, but it is only real when it produces leaders you approve of. You talk about peace, but it is the kind of peace where you hold the whip, and we are told to kneel quietly, and you expect me to protect this arrangement. No, I will not guard my own chains. I will not defend my people's prison. You think your sanctions will make me bend. You think your frozen accounts will make me compromise. You think your threats will make me run. But I do not lead from a palace built by your loans. I lead from the streets where my people walk. My power is not measured in your currency. It is measured in the trust of those who sent me here. And they did not send me to be polite. They did not send me to bow. They sent me to fight. I have heard you say that the world is too interconnected for isolation, that we must all work together. And yes, I believe in working together, but not in the way you mean. You mean that we must supply your factories and buy your products, that we must open our markets and close our mouths. I believe in a different kind of connection, one where my farmers feed my cities before they feed yours, one where my miners are paid enough to send their children to school before they send their minerals to your ports, one where my young people can dream without having to cross oceans to find work. And yes, this scares you, not because you care about my people, but because you care about your profits. You have built your wealth on the certainty that we will never question the arrangement. You have built your strength on the expectation that our leaders will trade our future for your approval. And now that the deal is over, you scramble to protect it. You write in your newspapers that I am a dictator. You send your diplomats to lecture me about governance. You organize your allies to isolate me. You say I am bringing danger to the region. But the danger was already here, the danger of a continent kept in chains while the world grows fat from its labor. You are afraid because I am not alone. You are afraid because the words I speak are not mine alone. They belong to every farmer who has seen their land taken, every miner who has been paid in scraps, every child who has studied by candlelight while their country's wealth lights up foreign cities. You are afraid because what started as one voice is becoming a chorus, and you know you cannot silence it forever. Do you know what I see when I look at you? I see an empire pretending to be a council. I see judges who think they cannot be judged. I see thieves who think they cannot be caught. I see a system that believes it can last forever, simply because it has lasted for so long. But history has never been kind to those who believe they are untouchable. Every empire falls, every unjust system collapses, every lie eventually meets the truth, and I am here to tell you, your time is running out. You can send your envoys, you can write your resolutions, you can hold your summits, but the people of my land are no longer listening to you. They are listening to each other. They are listening to the sound of their own footsteps as they march toward freedom. They are listening to the call that says we must own what is ours, decide what is ours, defend what is ours, and I will walk with them, not with you. I know you think this is arrogance, but it is not arrogance to demand what is rightfully ours. It is not arrogance to refuse to be ruled by those who have no right to rule us. It is not arrogance to say that we will not trade our dignity for your money. This is not arrogance, this is survival, and if survival makes me your enemy, then so be it. You cannot intimidate me with the fate of others who came before me. Yes, I know their names, I know what happened to them, I know the price they paid, and I am willing to pay it, because the alternative is to live on my knees, and that is a life I will never choose. You can remove me from office, you can smear my name, you can even take my life, but you cannot stop what has already begun. You cannot kill an idea whose time has come. You cannot erase the truth from the hearts of the people once they have seen it. I am not here to please you. I am here to remind you that the days of your unchallenged rule are ending. I am here to tell you that my land will no longer be your mine, your farm, your dumping ground. I am here to declare that our destiny will no longer be written in your capitals. And I am here to warn you the world is watching and your mask is slipping. Call me a threat, call me dangerous, call me what you like. But remember this, the only thing I threaten is your control. The only danger I bring is to the system you have built on the backs of my people. And if that is the danger you fear, then your fear is justified, because I will not stop. We will not stop. The tide is turning, and no matter how high your walls, the water will find its way in. You have built your world on lies, lies that you dressed as truth, lies you repeated so often that you began to believe them yourself. You told the world that you came to civilize us, but your civilization came with chains. You told the world that you came to help us, but your help came with contracts that stole everything we owned. You told the world that we are partners, but you have never seen us as equals. And now, when we tear the mask from your face, when we show the world what lies beneath, you say we are a danger. You are right. We are a danger to your theft, to your control, to the order you have imposed for centuries. For too long you have written our history without asking our permission. You have told the story of our nations as if we were side characters in your drama, as if our land existed only to serve as the stage for your power. You divided our borders, not for our benefit, but for your convenience. You built governments that answer not to our people, but to your bankers and your corporations. You installed leaders who could speak your language, but not the language of their own people. And when those leaders failed, when the hunger and poverty became too obvious to hide, you blamed us for the problems you created. You have perfected the art of control. You do not always send soldiers anymore. You do not always need to wave your flags over our buildings. Now your control is silent, written in loans, hidden in trade agreements, enforced by debt. You keep us chained to your currency, so that even when we work for you. You keep us dependent on your imports, so that even when we grow our own food, we cannot feed ourselves without your permission. You keep our young people desperate for jobs, so that they will accept your terms, no matter how unfair. This is your peace, this is your stability, and you wonder why I reject it. You call me a threat because I refuse to guard your interests. You call me dangerous because I will not enforce your order, but I have no desire to be the warden of a prison built for my own people. I will not use my position to protect the same chains I came to break. If that is the role you expect of me, then you chose the wrong man. I am not here to keep the machine running. I am here to dismantle it. You have taken more from us than you can ever return. You have stripped the earth beneath our feet and left us with holes where mountains once stood. You have drained our rivers and left us with dust where water once flowed. You have cut down our forests, poisoned our soil, and then told us it is our fault for not managing our resources better. You have turned our land into your supply chain, our people into your labor force, our governments into your puppets, and still you expect gratitude. Still you expect obedience. You think that because this has been the way for centuries, it will be the way forever. You are wrong. I know what you fear. You fear that if we break free, others will follow. You fear that if we refuse your terms, the illusion will shatter. You fear that your power will no longer reach into every corner of the earth, and you should fear this because it has already begun. Across the continent, across the global south, there is a stirring. People are speaking to each other in a language you cannot control. They are making plans you cannot intercept. They are building alliances you cannot destroy, and they are learning that your power is not as unshakable as you pretend. Your newspapers write stories about me. Your analysts discuss me on your television channels. Your so-called experts speak about my country as if it were theirs to dissect. You think that if you shape the narrative, you can shape reality. But the people who matter are not listening to you anymore. They are listening to the truth spoken in the streets, the truth shared in the markets, the truth whispered in the villages. And that truth is simple: you are not invincible. You will try to use every weapon at your disposal. You will use your banks to choke us. You will use your media to smear us. You will use your allies to isolate us. You will even use your armies when your other weapons fail. But you forget something. We have survived all of this before. You cannot threaten a people who have lived under threat for generations. You cannot intimidate those who have nothing left to lose. You cannot scare those who have already faced the worst you can do. When you say that I am dangerous, you mean that I will not sell my people's future for your approval. You mean that I will not open my country to your exploitation in exchange for a seat at your table. You mean that I will not let my nation's wealth be drained away while my people suffer. You mean that I will not be your servant. And yes, in your world, that makes me dangerous. I do not seek conflict for the sake of conflict, but I know that peace without justice is not peace. It is surrender. I know that prosperity for you built on the poverty of others is not prosperity, it is theft. I know that democracy where only your friends can win is not democracy, it is a game rigged from the start. And I know that the only way to change a system built on exploitation is to challenge it completely. That is why you fear me. That is why you will call me names. That is why you will try to stop me, because I do not play your game. You are used to leaders who beg for your loans, who fight for your approval, who govern with one eye on their people and the other on your ambassadors. But I will not govern like that. My eyes are fixed on my people alone. My loyalty is to those who walk the streets and work the fields, not to those who sit in boardrooms or foreign offices. I am not here to manage your interests. I am here to defend ours. I will be accused of nationalism, of populism, of extremism. You will say that I am leading my people into danger, but the real danger is to do nothing. The real danger is to leave things as they are. The real danger is to keep feeding a system that starves us, to keep supporting a structure that oppresses us, to keep believing that one day, without any effort, without any struggle, you will simply decide to give us back what you have taken. That day will never come. We must take it ourselves. And so I tell you now, I am not asking for your permission. I am not here to negotiate the terms of my people's dignity. I am not here to ask whether you approve of our freedom. We do not need your approval. We do not need your blessing. We do not need your forgiveness. What we need is what is already ours, our land, our resources, our sovereignty, our future, and we will have it, whether you agree or not. You may say that this is not realistic, but realism is just the word you use when you want us to accept our chains. You may say that this will isolate us, but isolation from you is not isolation from the world. We have friends who are not your puppets. We have partners who do not come to take, but to build. We have allies who understand that respect is worth more than profit, and together we will stand. You can label me a threat. You can call me dangerous. You can try to bury my name under your propaganda. But you cannot bury the truth, and the truth is this: your era of unchallenged rule is ending. You will not decide our destiny any longer. We will write it ourselves in our own language, with our own hands, for our own children. And when history is written, it will remember this moment, not as the moment I was silenced, but as the moment you were confronted. Call me a threat, call me dangerous, but remember, it is not me you fear. It is the awakening of a people who have had enough, and no matter how hard you try, you cannot put a people back to sleep once they have seen the morning. For far too long, the chains of domination have been hidden behind the polished smiles of diplomacy and the fine print of international agreements. What is often presented as partnership or cooperation is, in reality, a carefully crafted system designed to keep entire nations dependent and submissive. This system of control no longer needs the open brutality of colonial occupation. It operates silently, through mechanisms that appear harmless but are more destructive than armies. Loans are given not as acts of generosity, but as weapons burdening countries with debts they can never repay. In return, they are forced to surrender their resources, adjust their policies to suit foreign investors, and allow the plundering of their economies under the watchful eye of so-called development institutions. Currencies are another invisible shackle. When the value of a nation's money is tied to decisions made in foreign capitals, there is no real economic freedom. Every fluctuation becomes an opportunity for outside powers to manipulate markets, destabilize governments, and keep them in a constant state of dependency. Even natural resources, the birthright of every citizen, are often extracted by foreign corporations that return only a fraction of the wealth to the land from which it came. Infrastructure is built not to serve the people, but to serve the flow of resources out of the country. Trade agreements are written in languages that praise free markets, while making sure the rules are never truly free for all. The stronger party dictates terms that force weaker nations to open their markets while protecting their own. This is why farmers are driven out of business, local industries collapse, and imported goods flood the markets, because the system is designed to ensure no true competition can ever rise against global giants. This structure is not maintained by accident. It is sustained by a network of elites who benefit from keeping it intact. These elites, both foreign and local, work together to ensure the masses remain unaware of how deeply they are being robbed. It is a system that feeds off silence, complacency, and the belief that change is impossible. But the truth is that no system of control is permanent. The moment people begin to see its inner workings and refuse to participate in it, the very foundations of that power begin to crumble. It is only through such awakening that true independence can ever be reclaimed. Across the continent and beyond, there are leaders who wear the titles of presidents, prime ministers, and ministers, yet their true allegiance is not to the people they claim to serve. These are not leaders in the genuine sense. They are caretakers of foreign interests, managers of someone else's agenda. They speak the language of sovereignty, but act in ways that betray it, making decisions not for the welfare of their citizens, but for the comfort of their overseas patrons. Their every move is calculated to keep them in favor with external powers, even if it means signing away the wealth, dignity, and future of their own nations. Such figures are elevated not because they are the strongest defenders of their people, but because they are the most obedient to those who truly hold power behind the scenes. They are granted privileges, international praise, and even personal wealth in exchange for ensuring that no real independence is achieved. The moment a leader dares to step out of line, the system reacts swiftly. Economic sanctions, political isolation, media campaigns to discredit them, and in the most extreme cases, orchestrated instability to remove them entirely. This is how the cycle of dependency is preserved, by ensuring that those at the top are chosen not by the people's will, but by the approval of external masters. These puppet figures stand before the world as if they are in command, yet every critical decision is first checked against the desires of those who control aid packages, dictate military support, and manipulate trade terms. They smile on television, declaring grand visions for the future, but behind closed doors they sign documents that hand over ports, mines, farmland, and even the rights to water. And while the people suffer unemployment, poor healthcare, and crumbling infrastructure, these so-called leaders build palaces for themselves and their allies. Rejecting such leaders is not merely a political choice, it is an act of survival for any nation that hopes to stand on its own feet. It means refusing to be deceived by speeches and empty promises, and instead demanding actions that serve the people first. True leadership must come from those who are willing to confront foreign exploitation, dismantle unjust agreements, and face the consequences of defying the powers that want them compliant. The era of bowing to puppets disguised as leaders must end, for as long as they remain in power, the chains of dependency will only grow tighter, and the dream of genuine freedom will remain just out of reach. For centuries, entire continents have been carved up, stripped bare, and left to bleed, while those who orchestrated the plunder rewrote the story to make themselves appear as saviors. Resources were stolen, not in moments of chaos, but through carefully designed systems that disguise theft as trade, slavery as civilization, and domination as partnership. The minerals beneath the soil, the crops in the fields, the forests, the rivers, all were taken to build the wealth of faraway lands, leaving behind broken economies and fractured societies. Even when independence was declared, the chains did not vanish, they simply changed form, hidden in treaties, debts, and lopsided trade agreements. This exploitation was never accidental. It was planned, sustained, and enforced through violence, deceit, and the manipulation of local governance. Generations were robbed of the opportunity to determine their own destiny. Their cultures were attacked, their histories rewritten, and their unity intentionally fractured to make resistance more difficult. The colonizers and their modern heirs learned that direct occupation was no longer necessary when economic control, political influence, and military interference could achieve the same goals with less risk and more profit. The legacy of this exploitation is visible everywhere. In nations rich with natural wealth, poverty remains widespread. In lands capable of feeding themselves many times over, hunger persists because food is exported to satisfy the demands of foreign markets. Young minds full of potential are forced to leave their homelands in search of opportunities abroad because their own countries have been drained of investment and denied fair access to global markets. This is not the result of bad luck or poor governance alone, it is the deliberate outcome of a global order built on inequality. To call out this history is not to dwell on the past, but to strip away the lies that still justify the present. Those who profit from this system would rather the world forget, so they can continue taking without question. But memory is resistance, and truth is the first step toward reclaiming what was stolen. The injustice of centuries cannot be undone overnight, yet acknowledging it openly forces the powerful to face the reality they try to hide. If this exploitation is allowed to go unchallenged, the cycle will continue for another 100 years. But if the people rise with clarity, unity, and the will to break free, then the story will no longer be one of theft and suffering. It will be one of reclamation, justice, and true independence. Those who hold power over nations often live with an unspoken fear, a fear that one act of defiance will inspire others to rise. They understand that resistance is contagious, that once people witness a successful challenge to oppression, the illusion of invincibility begins to crumble. This is why even the smallest rebellion is met with disproportionate force, because it is not the act itself they fear most, but the chain reaction it could ignite. Throughout history, empires and dominating powers have fallen not because they were defeated in one decisive battle, but because cracks began to appear in their foundations. These cracks were caused by small yet powerful moments, voices that refused to be silenced, communities that refused to be broken, and leaders who refused to obey the scripts handed to them. Each act of courage sends ripples across borders, across cultures, across time, reminding others that the oppressor is not untouchable. Those who benefit from global systems of control know that their strength depends on the submission of those beneath them. If one nation dares to step outside of their dictated role, it risks exposing the truth that obedience is a choice, not an inevitability. And once that truth is known, others begin to question the chains around them. The fear is not simply about losing control of one territory, it is about losing the perception of total dominance. That perception is the glue holding the entire system together. This is why examples of independence are so often erased, distorted, or drowned in propaganda. The aim is to prevent the idea from spreading. The powers at the top understand that if the oppressed see that liberation is possible, the balance shifts. They know that the courage of one can become the courage of millions, and that once unity begins to form, it is nearly impossible to suppress without exposing the brutality of their rule. The fear of a chain reaction is in truth an acknowledgement of their own weakness. It reveals that control is fragile, that the entire structure rests on the hope that people remain divided and afraid. But the moment one spark is lit and others see its flame, the darkness that has lasted for generations can begin to fade. What they fear most is not just losing power, it is the unstoppable momentum of a people who have awakened to their own strength. There comes a point when half measures and polite negotiations are no longer enough. The right to govern one's own land, control one's own resources, and determine one's own future is not something to be begged for, it is a birthright. Sovereignty is not a privilege granted by external powers, nor is it a favor that can be withdrawn when convenient. It is the natural and unquestionable state of a free people, and any compromise on that truth is nothing less than surrender. For too long, nations have been forced to operate within frameworks designed by those who never had their best interests at heart. Every policy, every trade agreement, every diplomatic condition is often shaped to keep them dependent, compliant, and unable to break free from economic or political control. When such systems dictate the terms of survival, sovereignty becomes a hollow word, something spoken with pride in public speeches, but undermined behind closed doors. The demand now is for it to be made real, not symbolic. True sovereignty means that no foreign government, corporation, or institution should have the final say over a nation's destiny. It means that the wealth beneath the soil and the potential of the people must serve the country first, not distant shareholders or hidden benefactors. It means the freedom to form alliances based on mutual respect rather than coercion, and the courage to reject deals that compromise independence no matter how lucrative they appear on the surface. This demand is not about isolation, it is about equality. Cooperation between nations is healthy only when it is voluntary and based on respect, not when it is extracted through threats or manipulation. Sovereignty ensures that every partnership is chosen, not imposed. It gives people the dignity of charting their own course, even if the path is difficult, because it is theirs to walk. Those who resist this shift will claim that sovereignty comes with risks, that it is safer to remain under the guidance of more powerful forces. But history has shown that this so-called guidance often leads to exploitation, poverty, and the erosion of cultural identity. The uncompromising demand for sovereignty is a declaration that the risks of freedom are worth more than the false security of dependence. It is the recognition that only when a people truly govern themselves without strings, without masters, can they claim to be free in the truest sense.